All right, if we're ready to begin, let's begin. Thank you for being here and welcome. Let's stand for a prayer and a pledge of allegiance. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful day, and we appreciate the fact that we are here to take care of county business, and we thank you for your continued presence here with us as we make these decisions. We just give you this agenda and ask that you direct us on each and every agenda item. Thank you for those that have come today. Thank you for the citizens of this community that support the work of the county, and thank you for those that work for the county to get these jobs done. Thank you for your blessing upon this community. We pray for our first responders and our servicemen and women, wherever they may be, especially at this holiday time, Lord, as they are away from their families. We pray for their protection and their safety and their return, and that you would just comfort them during this holiday season. Once again, we turn this agenda over to you. In Christ's name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, once again, welcome to our final meeting of the month of November. Today is the 25th November 2019, just after 9 a.m. And this is our first item is public comments and or requests for information on non-agenda items in accordance with our Open Meetings Act. And I've got two formal requests here to speak, and I'll go in order that I received them. First is Dave Wall. Dave, welcome. Dave's been here with us in times past talking about a variety of subjects, so welcome today, Dave, and what's on your mind?
Thank you very much. I come here today to say something that some people might consider somewhat controversial, but I came here to say thank you. Back in 2013, how about 2013? I came to y'all and asked, and y'all gave me carte blanche to get all the mulch that I needed to support gardens in this area. I have not abused the privilege. Come the end of February, it will be 8 years since you gave me that, and I don't think I've taken more than 7 or 8 loads. I'll be taking a couple in the near future, but I have not abused the privilege. And I do thank you very much for allowing me to do that. I also want to say thanks for something else. Now, I grew up in McCurtain County, which probably has more gravel roads today than Titus County has paved roads. So I'm used to roads that are not in great condition, and I realize it's very fashionable wherever you are to complain about the condition of the roads in the county. A couple of weeks ago, Norma and I went out to drive throughout the county. And we wanted to get off the main roads and just drive and see the country. We were not out to see the colors because the weather conditions have prevented most of the colors from occurring this fall. But we got out on some really tiny, small roads, a lot of them so tiny that when we met somebody, we had one set of tires completely off the pavement. And we began to realize how many roads that y'all have to take care of. And so from my standpoint, I would just like to say thanks. I think you're doing a good job. The roads may not be all that great. They may be religious roads. They're full of holes. But the amount of roads that y'all have to take care of in your budget, I just want to say thank you. Enough said.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Speaker number 2, Sue Evenwell, wants to talk to us about an interesting subject she emailed me about while I was out of town last week. Otherwise, we might have had it on the agenda today, but I'd like her to tell you about this and then get an idea of what you think, and we'll get it on a future agenda.
And I have extra copies here for anyone else that is interested. I'll pass them over to you.
straight up and do it.
There we go. It's balanced. So I'm here today to speak to the court in support of passing a resolution to make Titus County a Second Amendment sanctuary. And like Brian said, I would ask that this be considered or placed on the next agenda and considered for a vote. The move to tighten gun laws across the nation is facing a backlash to many of our sheriffs in rural communities like ours, who are just refusing to uphold the new restrictions by declaring these counties Second Amendment sanctuaries. The Santa Fe shooting, of course, and the more recent one in El Paso, has prompted our Texas governor and lieutenant governor to consider passing restrictions on legal gun owners and red flag laws in order to curb some of the violence. Not sure that there's any evidence to say that that's correct, but that's what they're doing. New laws, including compulsory background checks, a ban on assault weapons, raising the minimum age for gun ownership, as well as storage ideas, which separate the ammunition from the gun, which is in separate containers, which is pointless in my estimation. But the most egregious laws being considered in Texas are the red flag laws, much like those in Arkansas and in Arizona, which would allow weapons to be confiscated from legal owners who are considered dangerous without due process. And if you don't know about that situation, it could be a complaint reported to our local sheriff or police department by a disgruntled neighbor or a past lover or anybody that just doesn't like you anymore. If you have weapons in your house, they can complain anonymously, and the local law enforcement can confiscate it without a warrant, which is totally against our Constitution. Similar measures in other states have run into strong opposition from sheriffs who are bluntly refusing to enforce the new laws, which they argue are unconstitutional. According to one estimate, I discovered that there are over 3,000 elected sheriffs in the country who are largely responsible for rural areas like ours, and they are all up in arms about these particular laws. When Governor Grisham of New Mexico signed a bill enforcing checks and other restrictions, the background checks, she got an immediate response, and 25 out of her 33 counties were backing the sheriffs who were refusing to enforce the laws. One sheriff said, "We were elected by the people, and we swore an oath to protect the Constitution, and that's what we're going to do. They want us to seize people's firearms without a warrant." Similar sheriff's protests have been reported in other states, and you'll be surprised at these states because they're considered probably very liberal in a general way. Washington, Colorado, Nevada, Oregon, and even Illinois. One sheriff in Washington went further to say that he just may prevent state and federal law enforcement to enforce them. Now, our sheriff could do that too, because he could deputize any one of you in this room, if it came to that, to enforce the laws that are constitutional. In Colorado, the sheriffs were accused of acting illegally, and the attorney general there said, "The right thing for any sheriff to do is to follow the law. If they can't, they should resign." A spokesman for the Brady campaign said about the sheriffs that the role of these officers to enforce the law, not to interpret it. It's not their job to decide whether or not the law is unconstitutional. I think Tim would agree that that is unconstitutional in itself, according to the jurisdictions of any county sheriff. So this resolution will not only define our resolve to protect our constitutional right and to defend ourselves and our homes in Titus County, but it will also clearly define the authority and the support we give to our sheriff. So I just ask you to seriously consider it and approve it for Titus County.
Who is behind this effort?
The county sheriffs of rural districts. There isn't quite an organization, but they have loosely kind of formed a coalition to go around it, or to put it forth. And it's not only being done here in Texas, but around the country.
Are you making this appeal in other places, or are you just because you're
No,
here?
I'm just going to make it in Titus County. In fact, there are already 15 counties within the last couple of months in Texas that have passed it, and there are more in the position where you are, where they're just getting the information, and I know that there are more going to be signing up. And when you consider rural Texas, I wouldn't be surprised if we have 100 or more counties sign up in the end.
Interesting.
I don't know if you have any questions for me or even Tim.
Well, since
'cause
it's
Tim
not an
has seen it.
agenda item, you have this copy with you. I'm going to plan on putting it on the agenda. I think it's worthy of discussion, and at that time, we'll let Tim,
Okay,
Sheriff
thank you.
Ingram, address that. All right, thank you. All right, item number 2 is our consideration of minutes from our last meeting on November 8th.
Make that motion.
A motion to approve the minutes is made by Commissioner Applewhite
Second.
and a second by Commissioner Parker. All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Item number 4, we have with us Steve Austin, and Steve always brings something worthy of recognition. Steve, I'd like to recognize you and your guest and tell us what you've got up your sleeve today. Item 3. I'm going to come back to that. I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that, but I didn't know if these guys had some, especially the one in the back, if he might need to go to work.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. Today I'm asked for your consideration. Back in May of this year, I asked Mr. Bo Rester to serve as Master of Ceremony for Blue Star dedication that we had at the Chamber of Commerce office. Since then, Bo's accepted that original appointment and has acted in the behalf of the Veteran Service Office and myself on a number of occasions. One of the most recent public events was the Gold Star Family Luminary event that was held in Caldwell Park, where he emceed that. Bo's the owner agent of State Farm, the owner-operator of Bo Rodeo Productions, and owner-registered financial consultant at Rester Investments. And again, he was named the VSO's official Master of Ceremony back in May of this year. Bo conducted several events after accepting that appointment. His first official ceremony was the National Garden Club Blue Star Marker presentation that was conducted during the Armed Forces Day weekend. He also presided over the Gold Star Marker ceremony held here at the courthouse grounds, and has served in a number of situations dealing with the MOM group and dedication of local highways. He's been the driving force of that project, and he also assisted during the last P.E. Wallace 22nd annual Veterans Day program, and he also emceed the one at Chapel Hill for their Veterans Day. He was instrumental in establishing the Sergeant Chauncey Mays Memorial Highway, Vietnam Veterans Memorial Highway, and most recently World War II Memorial Highways. We also have in effect plans for World War I in Korea in the upcoming near future. All this bands together to make Titus County and Mount Pleasant a focal point as far as patriotism and a community that recognizes its heritage and helps keep the nation free. But was also served in the capacity of the service officer's designated representative for memorial services, and just had conducted one of those services for local veteran, Mr. Bobby Robert L. Hardman. The purpose is to, as a designated representative or the Master of Ceremonies, Bo will perform those duties as assigned by me in keeping with the appropriate protocol and regulation as may be required from time to time in each circumstance. Such protocol and regulation will be identified by myself in advance, and such assignment made known to the designated representative. The VSO will not request the designated representative to perform any assignment that conflicts with or violates the rule of protocol or is a breach of regulation in association with any of these specified activities. The VSO will review any considered assignment in advance and will provide the designated representative with the necessary information, guidelines, program, or agenda to allow the assignment to be carried out with confidence and provide the respect and honor due each assignment. Why am I doing this? The VSO requires assistance in the performance of these duties for a number of reasons, some dealing with health and availability. Qualifications of the designated representative was qualified by his deeds and his actions, patriotism and moral character, commitment and enthusiasm. And he has also been trained and experienced in public speaking. At this time, I'd ask Bo to come up so that you could ask him any particular questions that you might have, and also give his comments to the Commissioners Court about this designation.
I guess I'd ask.
Well, Bo, before we say anything, I'll let you say whatever you'd like to say.
Obviously very honored to be able to support the VSO. It's my calling, I believe, to bring honor to veterans. It's a 20-year calling. Memorial Day, 1999, in Arlington National Cemetery, I felt very heavy in that I had served our country in the securing of and the continuation of freedom and liberty. Headstone after headstone, all in a row, regardless of the direction you looked, began to make me feel like I hadn't served, my father didn't serve, neither of my grandfathers did. And I didn't want to be just a soaker of freedom. I wanted to do something. And I felt like that day during that time, it was one of those moments that was almost audible. I felt like, in my opinion, God told me you can honor veterans. So I've embarked on that and want to continue with it. So that's the driving force behind why I have done the things I've done around the county that you may be aware of. But for Steve to feel like that I have the ability to represent our county and honoring veterans is a great honor to me, and one that I take very seriously. I think that I want to reiterate what he said about nothing would I ever attempt to do that would be outside protocol. That would not be anything that I would do other than what a civilian would be appropriate in doing. Nothing that I would ever do to represent or act as if I were a veteran. Other than that, it's a great honor, and I'd entertain any questions you may have for me.
Well, Bo, your fingerprints are all over activities that you're describing here and have been for years, and it's been wonderful having somebody that's willing to step up into that role and not only take care of routine things, but actually generate interest and focus on our veterans. And you've been a strong leader there, raising money. You really put your money where your mouth is. I know you spend a lot of time on this, so your calling has been very obvious. We're very grateful. Steve, it's a great idea. It's obviously it makes sense. Recognition well deserved, and I know you all work together well, and I'll look forward to seeing Bo continue to to provide a mouthpiece there and his leadership skills at future events. So great idea, great recognition. Commissioners, anything? Questions for Bo?
I'd just like to say that, Bo, that I appreciate you stepping up in this role. I know you've done a lot, and I want to let you know that I do appreciate it.
Is this a volunteer position? Is it a paid position?
This is a volunteer. Bo's duties will be confined to the ceremonies and events and activities. The VSO's duties as far as claims and dealing with veterans continues to be the sole prerogative of the Veteran Service Officer. No responsibilities in that direction will be referred to Mr. Rester.
All right.
I would like to say thank you, too.
Yes or no? Is it a volunteer position? Or
Yes,
is
it
it
is.
a paid position?
Volunteer position.
Okay, thank you.
Bo, I want to appreciate what you've done too. You've done a lot. I appreciate it.
Bo, I'd like to thank you, and I really enjoy when you do host ceremonies and dedications, and you're very good at it. And I'm proud of you when we have all these visitors that come from all over to come to these dedications, and you're a great representative, and I like what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you both. Steve, appreciate it again.
Yes, sir.
All right. Carry on. Thank you both. Okay, let's jump back. Item number 3, our report from commissioners regarding roadwork status. I think I'll start this time on my left, Commissioner Parker.
We've been cleaning out some ditches on 4960 and 4875 and trying to do a lot of patching. Had one of my guys doing a little side cutting on a couple of roads that had gotten pretty bad, 4660 and 4670. Still like a little bit being through with that, but I've got a couple of guys that this week that are taking a little time off for their taking their comp time that they had built up over the summer. So this week we've got a couple of hands that are just patching and trying to take care of that. So just everything's.
Have you ever tried it using any of that magic liquid coming out of Waco? Did y'all ever get
I haven't
any of
yet,
that
no,
done?
sir. I'm in the process of getting
Can that be
everything
applied
together.
any time of the year?
The winter time is the best time for it.
Okay, still have plans to
In
put
fact,
some-
they don't start making it till around the 1st of November.
Okay, we
So-
still thinking we're going to use some of that this winter?
Yes, sir.
Good. Commissioner Apple?
We've patched on 3070 in the Cookville area, and we fixed soft spots on 3260 around getting there's some bad spots where we dug out, and we scabbed over there on 1825, and we're scabbing today on 1915. Trying to get those roads in better shape what they were.
Thank you.
We have been doing some side cutting in Precinct 2, and several base failures we've had to repair. We are doing a pretty major project right now, and we should finish it up today on 2500, where we're paving over some soft spots that we dug out. Some of them were about 18 inches deep. It was some pretty bad traffic through there, tearing up the road. And we've done a lot of ditch work, cleaning ditches and drainage. And we also did something very interesting for Steve Austin. He asked me to do this a while back, where they decommissioned the flags, and they had to be burned. So we came and got a whole truckload, about 10 major boxes full of flags. It was over 100 so flags probably. And it was the weirdest thing, setting some flags on fire, but that's what we're supposed to do, and they were decommissioned. So we went out there privately where nobody was around behind the burn pile, and we burnt them things to a crisp and got rid of them. So you never know what you're going to get asked to do. Somebody had wrapped up a live round in one of those flags for some reason. I don't know why, and that thing went off, and boom, scared me. So anyway, we got that done, helped clean out the office down there. He had a lot of stuff in storage that needed to be gone. And we're doing some patching between the rains and trying to keep our roads good and passable for winter. It's a pretty constant job. So staying busy.
Commissioner Riddle?
Yeah, well, a couple of years ago, David Holmes took care of those flags, burn them out at the burn pile. We worked on, we patched every road and finished up Friday and replaced some culverts and removed some trees in the right-of-way last 2 weeks.
All right, thank you. I'll let him talk to you about that after the meeting.
After the meeting?
Yeah.
You're not recognizing
No, we're not here to take a lot of questions right now on a unless you want to talk about it now.
I can answer the question. It won't take just a second. I have talked to SWEPCO out here and their main office in Ohio, and I have talked to the contractor, and we will assess the road when all of their traffic is through. So to see what needs to be done.
Have they agreed to do it, just out of curiosity?
We haven't agreed on anything as far as what they'll do, but we have talked about it, and they do know that we do have a concern with what's, with the traffic that they've got on the road.
Precinct 1's going to have some of that too out there.
They're up by our office now. They're got everything tore up. They're putting them new lines up. Then they're putting them up. They're coming behind our office. Yeah. No, they'll be here because I've talked. Yeah, they'll fix everything they tear up. I know, but the guys out there, they took the fence down and they said they would put it back up and the way we like it.
All right, item number 5 is
Are you not going to recognize House Bill 2840 throughout this, where it says that we can discuss, it says y'all are considering and talking?
Yes, I'm relatively open. I want him to address that too.
Well, there may be more issues.
Well, since I had not discussed that particular issue with him, I didn't want to bring it up here without giving him fair warning. Yeah, do you have any other questions?
Not on this issue, but there might be some.
Sure. All right. Item number 5, presentation by Tim Taylor regarding the occasional sale of properties that have been removed from the tax rolls. This subject came up last meeting. Tim wasn't here, but I did talk to Tim about this and asked him to provide us with kind of an update on the process that he goes through when he brings us these properties to be sold. And so Tim is here. He's brought us some information here. Tell us in general about this. We're going to come back and deal with those same 2 potential sales that we dealt with 2 weeks ago. But in general.
Okay. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Judge Lee asked that I kind of provide you how we got to the point of Titus County selling a piece of property, and I provided you with a step-by-step procedure. Briefly, I will go through it. Of course, it starts with when a delinquent tax becomes due on a piece of property. It's turned over to us for collection. We try to collect it non-judicially by writing letters and contacting people personally, going to see them by telephone or however. And when all else fails, then you file a suit to foreclose on the tax lien. Now, the tax lien arises when the delinquent taxes are not paid. It arises automatically, doesn't require us to do anything, it's there. So we file a suit to foreclose the delinquent tax lien. After it goes through the process, we obtain a judgment against the property owner and against the property per se, which allows the court to sell the property. The district court orders it sold. We get a order of sale from the district court. The sheriff's department gets a writ of execution for the piece of property. We schedule a sheriff's sale. The sheriff's department goes out and executes or levies on the property, posts it for sale, seizes it. Then we have a sale on the courthouse steps. It's by auction. It's a public auction. It's not a private auction. And anybody can attend, anybody can bid on it. We advertise the sale 3 weeks in advance, one day each week for 3 weeks. And it's held on the steps of the courthouse, and it's always held on the first Tuesday of the month. And it could be any month during the year. We usually try to have 2 to 3 sales a year. Once it's auctioned off, once it goes on auction, it has to be sold on the day of the auction for the amount of the judgment or the market value as assessed by the taxing entities. The appraisal district sets what the market value is, and it has to bring at least that amount or the amount of the judgment. And if it does, then it's struck off to whoever the high bidder is, and it goes back on the tax rolls. If we receive no bid for that amount, then it's struck off to the taxing entities. And we set aside one taxing entity to act as trustee for all the taxing entities. And normally on property that's in the county, we strike it off to the county, and the county holds the property as trustee for the school district, the college, and the hospital district. And for a period of 6 months, the county can only accept a bid that is at least in the amount of the tax judgment or the market value. But after that 6-month period, the county can entertain any offer.
Go back to that. You said the tax judgment or the market value, either or?
Either or, whichever is the least.
Okay.
The least. And you have to take that bid. If you get a bid for the taxes that are owed, you have to take that bid. You can't hold it off for any higher price. If you get a bid for the market value, you have to take that bid, and that's only for the first 6 months. So after the 6-month period, you can accept any bid. And that's where we are on these bids. This property's been held more than 6 months. You can accept any bid you want to. The only problem is if you accept the bid, then it has to go to the other taxing entities, and they have to confirm the bid, and they have to agree to it. If they don't, then the property is not struck off or it's not sold to the individual. So briefly, that's kind of where we are. These bids are usually submitted through my office. Now, I present them to whoever the taxing entity is, it's a trustee, but they can be presented straight to the taxing entity itself. So that's kind of where we are on these bids. That's how it gets to this point.
I think one of the questions that I thought was a good question is how much opportunity does the public have to know about properties like this that are for sale? How many different points along the way is it made public that these are available and here's the procedure that you can go through if you're interested?
And initially, posting in the paper of the initial sale, that's how it has to run 3 times, advertising when the sale is. That's required by law. After that, if the property is struck off to a taxing entity, the website for the Titus County Appraisal District has them all listed with contact my office or any of the taxing entities, and they're listed there. Other than that, there's no other than, word of mouth. Neighbor might come in and say, I hear this property's been struck off for the taxes, what I do, and then we explain the procedure to them there. Other than that, there's no, nothing else going on with it. It's just out there.
You said the properties are on the appraisal district's website. And that would affect anything, not just what they collect the taxes for, but any piece of property throughout the county that has gone through this process.
Gone through this process,
is going to be on that website.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whether they collect the taxes or not, it's going to be on that website.
Okay. And then the sales of the first Tuesday, it runs 3 times in the paper. And then obviously when we get to this point and you go to the various taxing entities and say, hey, we've got a bid.
Yeah.
We've already gone through these other procedures. We now have a bid. And it can be substantially lower than either of those values that you talked about.
It can be any value. If it's right, if you get a bid for at least the market value or the judgment value, you don't have to have the consent of the other taxing entities. If you have a bid that's less than that and the county wants to sell it, then we go out to the other taxing entities and they have to concur by resolution that they want to sell it also.
Okay.
And like for property held by the county, this is the initial step on this property right here. If y'all agree to sell any of this property, then I'll go to each of the other taxing entities. And this is county property. One's in Morris County, or not in Morris County, but on the Morris County line out there. So I have to go to Daingerfield Independent School District to get their consent. The college has to consent also. So it's wherever the property is located, the taxing entity has to consent.
In this particular case, or in the agenda item number 7, for whatever reason, I guess maybe the publicity that we got at our last meeting, you actually got a couple of better bids than we were considering last week.
Right.
Is that just a coincidence, or do we need to do a better job and maybe take more time in the process of deciding?
I don't know whether it was coincidence or not, but There were two bidders interested in this particular piece of property out on 899, and one of them came in the office and he was a low bid, and he said, I want to bid higher, and y'all had passed it at that point. Y'all had not taken any action on it, you tabled it. So he put in another bid, and then I contacted the gentleman that had the higher bid, and he put in another bid, and then the other gentleman came even higher last Thursday. So we are updated bids on that. So I don't know whether it's a fluke or not. I don't do any advertising other than what comes up in the court here. If you get no other bids, you know, we can hold this property forever. We've got some on the list that's been there since 2013 that we received no bids on. Some has been there, you know, like this was 6 months. There were people at the previous sale that we held in April that saw this property, but they did not want to bid what it took to get it. So they were aware of the 6-month waiting period. So after the 6 months passed, that's when they started bidding on it.
Okay. Okay. Sue, I'll ask you to direct your questions to the court. Yeah.
I'm on the appraisal district website a lot. And how are these properties categorized? Because I don't recall seeing them at all.
Right at the top, when you get on their homepage, it talks about, it's in red. Last time I looked, it was in red ink. It talks about the link.
So you're saying I didn't read the memo?
No. It just, when you get to the homepage on the website, it says delinquent tax properties for sale, contact Tim Taylor, and then I think it refers you to the list that's there. But it's on the homepage.
So it's under your name instead of Titus County or the appraisal district?
It's under the appraisal district. It's in the appraisal district website.
Okay.
And it says contact Tim Taylor.
Okay.
And then it's for a list of the property. I can't remember if it's got them specifically listed or not. I think you'd have to click on it to see the list.
Well, you're the only
Okay,
person.
ladies, so that I can kind of keep some control here, and I don't mind you asking questions, but if you'll direct your questions up here, and I'll recognize you, and we'll try to get all the questions answered that we possibly can, rather than just having an open discussion here with our presenter.
Okay, Tim Taylor is the one that has all property. Right?
That's correct.
That is delinquent. Okay, he is paid by the county.
No.
He is paid by the 8 different taxing entities.
Is that right?
Tim, how are you paid?
I'm paid under contract by the taxpayer that owns the property. He has to pay an additional amount for attorney's fees. It doesn't come from the taxpayers at all. It comes from the individual tax account. Like when the property's sold, that's when I get a percentage of that amount that's sold.
In a case like one of these, say if we accept, I'll just say a $4,000 bid, how are you paid on something like that?
Well, out of the $4,000, the initial amount is paid court cost, which whatever that is. And when it gets down to the net amount, then it's charged. There's an amount that's set aside for attorney's fees, whether mine or anybody else's. It's statutory. It's 20% statutory attorney's fees.
Okay. But still, there's only a maximum. Let's say if somebody puts in a bid of $4,000 and we accept it, he's only going to write a check for $4,000.
That's right.
So the county or whatever the taxing entities are not necessarily going to receive their full piece of that $4,000.
No, there's in a case like this, there's probably $600, $700, $800 worth of court costs that has to be paid. And then there's an amount that's paid to the newspaper for the advertisement of the sale. When it gets right down to it, the basic reason we do this is to put the property back on the tax rolls to where somebody can start paying the taxes.
So when we've reached this point, in other words, that landowner is not contributing to any fees that you receive?
No.
Okay, it is coming out of our...
Well, it would be
from
the taxes collector,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, just to clarify that.
Yeah.
Does that answer the question?
Not really, because it still makes me nervous how that's handled. And also, are you elected or appointed?
Okay, Janice, if you'll ask the court. In other words, this is not an action item here.
No, I was just curious because I'm sitting on top of 16 acres that look as bad as that 4 acres out there, and they're at 3,400.
Okay. Yeah, that's not the subject of this discussion right here at all. I would encourage you to make an appointment with Mr. Taylor at some time and discuss those kind of things with him. I think there's all kind of variables here, and I'm sure that that would lead to a lot of questions in your mind, but, okay.
Something to consider is the auction that is held. It is generally from 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock. There's not a given time for that auction. For people to stand up here for 6 hours waiting on an auction.
I think that's mandated by the law. Tim, what, how
It
does,
is, you can hold it any time between 10 and 4. I do mine at 10 o'clock. The tax auctions are always at 10 o'clock. Now, a foreclosure by a bank, they can come anytime from 10 to 4, and I understand what you're talking about, because I've had to sit out there and wait also, but
Yeah.
mine are at 10 o'clock.
So we can count on you when it's time for you to sell something, you're going to be there at 10 o'clock?
That's right.
Okay. All right.
And something else, I spoke with the realtor, auctioneer, and he said that he would be willing to auction off the properties at no cost to the county or the entities. He would take his fee
From the buyer?
And we've done that. We've had auctioneers to do that. They volunteer. They don't volunteer their service. They do the 10% add-on. I don't do that on the first tax sales if we have an absolute
You're talking
sale.
about it, what you call the sheriff's
Sheriff's
sale.
sale, yeah.
Right.
The sheriff's department is actually in charge of the auction. I do it with one of the lieutenants there.
I've never attended one of those. Who does typically do the auctioneering services?
Well, we don't do an auction. We don't have an auctioneer at that time. We just we stand up there and take bids, and we'll bounce them back and forth against each other.
Okay.
It's hard enough just to get the dollar figure that's owed, much less adding 10% on at that time. We're not trying to do
Well, do you see an opportunity? I mean, you said you have done auctioneers in the past, and when is that appropriate and when is it not appropriate?
When we've had several what we call absolute auctions, when the number of pieces of property that we have on our list gets to like 30, where we can hold a regular auction, we'll get an auctioneer to step in there. He'll advertise it. He'll do whatever it takes to get it done, and he adds his 10% onto it. We've had 3 or 4 of those in the last probably 6 years. Right now we have 21 pieces of property that's on this list. After we've got 2 sales scheduled in the spring. After those 2 sales, we'll probably be close to 30 pieces of property, and next fall we'll probably have the absolute auction. At an absolute auction, y'all have to agree to take whatever. All the entities have to agree. I mean, the property goes, I mean, it may go for $100. It's just whatever we get it back on the tax rolls.
Okay. And at that time, if you have an auctioneer, they're paid only by that 10% buyer premium only?
That's right.
All right. Questions, Denise?
How do you come to designate which properties are put on there for auction? How long are they delinquent on the taxes before they're added on there?
Okay.
There's no set standard, to be honest with you. I mean, you have to file a suit within 4 years on personal property or within 20 years on real property, or you lose the tax. So that's what we file before that time period. We don't file normally on somebody that just owes $50 on taxes, because the court cost on that is, again, $500 to $700. So that you have to kind of be flexible on what, who gets filed and who doesn't.
So how many years is it that they haven't paid taxes before you?
I filed on them with 1 year, if it's high enough. To me, it's get the most dollars in the quickest way. If somebody owes $20,000 and they're only 1 year delinquent, they're probably going to get filed on real quick. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know of any that are higher right now that don't have a suit pending.
How long does what?
How long has it been?
How long has what been?
She's asking how long is it pending, like about someone, how long has it been?
How long has it been? Because I do, and you know what I'm talking about, there's one over there sitting for $25,000.
I believe we have a suit on it, if we're talking about the same one, yeah.
I think so. So how long does it sit there like that?
Well, it doesn't.
just goes downhill.
It doesn't just sit there. You have to work through the process, through the judicial system, which I don't have any control over how long it's going to stay there. All I can do is work it as it comes.
So this is a case of justice delayed, justice denied.
Okay. Any commissioners, do you all have any questions for Tim about this?
No.
Just procedurally, do we know, y'all understand how it gets to this point for the?
I mean, I think one question that I've received in the past is, we're not playing favorites depending upon who owes taxes, and well, he's a good old boy and he's on tough times. You follow, I'm assuming, a regimented procedure where all people are treated properly, and the only variables that would be considered would be perhaps the dollar amount, and there's not enough here. Otherwise, you're going to follow the same procedure on every taxpayer.
We're going to try to follow the same procedure. Not everybody's going to be treated equally because not everybody's equal. I mean, I've had cases where you've got ladies who couldn't afford, they didn't have work coming in, they couldn't afford their taxes. We try to set up tax payment plans. You have to work with the people to try to get the money, whatever it takes. I mean, everybody's different.
If somebody were to have a question about their perceived unfair treatment in a particular situation, can I invite them to call me and then I can call you?
They can call me direct.
Okay.
We take calls every day. That's how we get to know what's going on out there. People call us and ask us, and we'll look into it. So we'll field whatever calls come in.
Well, I have told some people to call you about that.
I don't have a problem with that at all.
All right. Okay. Denise?
Do y'all know how many, or what the dollar figure is of back taxes owed for our county?
I have no idea. You answered that question a few years ago.
I don't know right now.
How could we find that out?
Judy knows.
Okay.
Tax assessor collector.
And the appraisal district, since they're two different collection agencies?
Exactly.
Okay, I can find out the total number of back taxes that are uncollected at this time.
You can look at how much back taxes are owed, but you have to look at how much are collectible. There's a lot of taxes that are not collectible. They may be in bankruptcy, you can't collect on them. They may have a deferment plan, you can't collect on them. There's a lot involved with you can't just look at the dollar figure of delinquent taxes. It needs to be broken down into each individual capacity.
Okay. All right. Okay, thank you for that background information. Let's now move to the two properties that we talked about at our last meeting and see if you are ready to take any action on those. The first, in item number 6, is consider and possibly approve the acceptance of a bid of $1,650. This is a purchase of 1.78 acres in the J-Ball survey. I mean, we're talking about $1,000 an acre. So tell us about this particular property and why we can't seem to do any better than this.
This property was struck off April the 2nd of this year, so it's just barely over a 6-month period. I examined the property, or went out there initially back when the property was going to be sold 6 months ago, and it's kind of a rough piece of property, vacant land. There was an old house on it at one point in time. It's just gone down in value. The judgment amount was $7,100 roughly, and the value of the property was listed at $10,000. I received several bids. People were interested in it when they knew it was for sale. This was the highest one we got. You know, it's just up to the court to determine if they want to.
There might have been a lot of interest, but not monetarily.
Well, yeah, I think the neighbors were interested in buying it. Might have been a relative in there somewhere. I can't remember for sure, but that's all I've got. And I'm obligated to bring y'all the bids when I get a bid. I mean, that doesn't mean you have to accept it. It's just,
well, and sometimes you'll tell me, guys, you need to make a call, and sometimes you'll say, I recommend you take the call.
Exactly.
What's your recommendation on this, if any?
I really don't have one, Judge. I think this property it can sit there. It's not going to be taken care of. It's only going to go down in value, but it could possibly be worth more than what the offer is here. So I don't.
But based on the processes we've gone through, there may be somebody out there in a particular circumstance that might be willing to step up and pay more. We hadn't tapped into them yet.
We haven't got it yet, so I'm not urging you to accept this bid. I'm just saying here is a bid, and y'all can either take it or not. If we don't take it, then it goes back on the list. We may get a higher bid next week.
I think I've got a bidder right there.
These are two of the instances where we auction. I know I pay more for property besides mine, to keep somebody else off of it.
But you know, these have already been on a courthouse auction.
They've been on a courthouse auction with not a lot of advertising. We're talking about Facebook, this goes out on Facebook, this goes out. It goes out. It's out daily on people's faces.
You see any benefit in doing something like that?
I don't mind. I'm not a Facebook freak. I don't do that stuff, Judge, but I'm not saying it couldn't happen. We can turn this over to an auctioneer. I'm not saying an auctioneer is going to do any better. I think if we don't accept this bid, then next fall when we do an absolute auction, it may go for $200. It may go for $2,000. I don't know what it's going to go for.
Are you familiar with this property?
Only by driving by.
Okay.
Historically, I know it belonged to a lady named Leela Smith, I believe, just from the tax rolls.
On a good day with the right bidder, what are we going to get for this property?
It's an acre and 3/4. What, $4,000?
I don't know. I'm not
I mean,
familiar.
whose precinct is it? It's in Mr. Parker's precinct. He may be more familiar with the land value out there than I am.
Okay. And when it goes back, if we were to accept the $1,650, do you happen to know what it goes back on the tax rolls at?
I do not.
Okay. Not necessarily the sale price?
I would assume that whoever buys it would have a good leg to stand on to contest whatever figure it was put on there.
At least it does get back on the tax
It goes back on the tax rolls.
Okay. All right. Couple of more questions.
Okay, the one question, yes, you're saying it is 1.78 acres. There is my fear too. Are you sure it is 1.78 acres? I mean,
You get what you pay
Get
for.
it surveyed?
no, that's what I'm saying. I mean, selling a pig in a poke or something. Can you really say that it's that amount?
I can only say it's on the tax rolls at.
Okay.
That's all I know.
Yeah.
I didn't step it off.
The other piece of property that you haven't talked about goes back on the tax rolls at $63 a year.
Say that again?
The other piece of property that you're talking about, the 4.1 acres, goes on the tax rolls. The taxes paid right now are $63 a year.
For the county or overall?
What's on the appraisal, their figures,
That's the total taxes collected on it?
$63. They got a temporary exemption.
Interesting. Okay.
1.78, I'm not sure about.
Okay, so we need to make a decision here on item number 6. Commissioners, what would you like to do here? $1,650 on 1.78 acres, and we're the first entity that you've come to. Who else will you need to talk to? School?
It'll go to the, let's see, this is in Morris County, Red River, Dangerfield Independent School District.
Okay.
It'll have to go to Dangerfield Independent School District.
School district, college, hospital,
And the
us.
county.
And you're starting with us.
Well, y'all are the trustee. This is the property that you were struck off to as trustees, so.
All right. Anybody want to make a bold decision on this piece of property?
I just wonder if we put it at auction, like you're saying, we might get $500 for it, so that's a question right there that it's going to be hard to answer. That's a tough decision. I went and looked at that property. It's going to require a lot of cleanup. There was a house stand there at one time. Right beside it is an old house that's falling down. It's a kind of a post oak flat with just growed up rough trees on it. So
there's a difference between a nicely mowed.
yeah, there's no
1.78
fencing
acres and
around
something
it.
like this.
It's pretty rough, but I'm not a real estate person. So, what would be the next step if we don't sell it today? We'd put it back on the auction in the spring?
It would
If
stay
they
on
come
the
bid on
this list, and might get another bidder, might not. If not, like I said, if we have enough properties for an absolute auction, we'll do it next fall.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know. I don't know who I'd ask it would say that property where it's at would sell for. Maybe the appraisal district would say, hey, the last piece that looked like it across the street sold for this. I don't know. To make that decision.
Okay, I'm going to give it about 20 more seconds
Yeah,
here, and I'm going to move on.
I'm not. I mean,
Well,
I don't know if anybody has the correct
Table it,
answer on
accept
that.
it, turn it down.
Yeah.
kind of the way I look at it with that piece of property, that's one that I kind of know about more so than the other one. That's $1,650 that we could get back and get it back on the tax roll, and the absolute that scares me, because you never know what you are going to get out of it. You may get, $1 out of it, and this is putting $1,650 back versus or less whatever the court costs and all are. So to me, I think it would be good to put it back on the tax roll.
Is that a
So
motion?
I'll make that motion.
Motion is made by Commissioner Parker to accept at least at this point, accept $1,650 bid on this piece of property. I'll second that. All those in favor say aye.
Here you go.
All right.
I
Opposed?
abstain. I'm not
You
gonna vote.
abstain?
Yeah,
Conflict of interest?
yeah.
Okay. All right, there's one. Now, let's go to item number 7, and the good thing about this, Teresa, your questions resulted in a couple of additional bids, and we got some more money for this. So I've got $3,500 here on the motion, and since that time, we've gotten some improvement on that. So, Tim, if you'll tell us about the latest bids you've received on this 4.1 acres in the Thompson survey.
The bidders have come back since this was tabled. Eric Torres he offered $4,000, and he was not the high bid when it was presented, y'all. It was $3,500 by Mr. Jose De La Riva. Mr. De La Riva came back at $4,500 after Mr. Torres Mr. Riva came back, $4,500, and now Mr. Torres has come back at $5,000. This was as of last Friday, and Mr. De La Riva did not come back with any more, so I think this is the best and final offer I've got from anybody.
And these two guys are the same two that we had discussed two weeks ago. You don't have any new players involved here.
These two gentlemen, I don't know what either one of them have in store for the property, but considering the condition of this property, I would recommend this be sold, even though it's way below market value. I just
$1,250 an acre. All right, well, that's the good news. We're still considering the same piece of property, but instead of the $3,500 we talked about 2 weeks ago, and that is presented here on the agenda, we actually can consider this $5,000 bid from Eric Torres, who was one of the original bidders. Still dirt cheap for land. You're still looking at,
Ain't no dirt out there.
$1,250 an acre.
There's no dirt out there.
No dirt out there?
No dirt out there.
Mostly concrete?
Yes, I know for a fact.
And not smooth concrete?
No.
Well, tell us about it.
Well, my cousin, he owned it, and he had a construction company, and that's where he put all of his broke-up concrete, dug holes and filled it full of concrete. And if they're going to dig on it, I hope they got a big enough machine to jackhammer it through.
Yeah, but it's saving the creek.
Well, that's about all you're going to be able to put on it, just a creek go through it.
Commissioners, any questions you want to ask Mr. Taylor about this? I know that at least Dana is familiar with this property, and it's got the kind of cleanup that's serious dollars to remove the concrete that would be there. So in my opinion, you need to offset whatever you pay for this by whatever you're going to have to pay to clean it up, kind of like the Luminant power plant. You know, what's it worth? Well, let's subtract that from what it's going to cost to clean it up. So $5,000 is the bid if you want to consider that. Otherwise, you can decline, or you can table, or you can
make that motion.
else. Motion is made by Commissioner Applewhite to accept the bid of $5,000 from Eric Torres for 4.1 acres.
Second.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right. Tim, thank you. Thank you for your questions.
Thank you, Tim.
I learned something here
Thanks,
today.
sir.
There'll be dynamite out there for long.
We'll get the paperwork signed. Do you have the formal paperwork to go along with that $5,000?
I do not. I'll have to submit that this afternoon.
All right, very good.
Thank you, Tim.
May I make excuse?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you coming. Okay, item number 8. This is something we do on an annual basis. We need to formally consider and possibly approve the annual renewal of our Office of the Attorney General maintenance contract for the statewide Automated Victim Notification Services Grant. We call that the SAVINS grant, or the VINE Service Agreement, and this is a grant that assists the notification of victims of crime when the person who assaulted them or whatever might be the case is going to be released from prison. In other words, it gives them a heads up, hey, the bad guy is getting ready to be out on the streets again. You might want to you'll be aware of this. And this is a sophisticated system. It's been around for a while. We definitely want to participate in this. But because there is a third party that services this, we enter into an agreement with them. It's no different from what we've done each of the past years that I've been in office. And so I would ask that you approve this annual renewal of the SAVINS grant.
Make a motion.
Motion is made by to renew or to annually renew the SAVINS grant. Motion is made to do so by Commissioner Fitch.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Applewhite. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Item number 9, consider and possibly approve a records management policy and designate retention officers. And Barbara has been busy, and she's come across this, and we discussed this. I think she has a good idea here. She's going to tell you what she's thinking is going to work for her office, and it would be good to have a formal policy that we can share, and I think it's probably going to be more reasonable than the informal policy that we may have had, and that's to keep everything we have for the rest of our lives, and we don't need to do that. So in your research, kind of tell us what your thought process has been on this and what you're thinking about doing, Barbara.
Well, I found that before 1991, the county did take action as they were required to set a records management policy. And as Judge Lee said to you, the decision that was made was to keep everything forever. Well, that amount of paper is beginning to choke us in the auditor's office. So I've been cleaning out some things, but I knew that before we destroyed anything, I had to find out what the requirements were. So the Texas State Library Commission is what regulates that. And I got with them, and they recommended that we basically start over with that process. So what I put together is based on their policy model for a county our size. And what I did was I took their recommendations, and where it said small municipality, I put Titus County. So it says what we're going to do, we're going to keep things, and what we're required to do is any elected official can make those decisions for their own office. Any non-elected official, like me, an appointed official, or anyone else like the elections or anything like that, Judge Lee has to be, or y'all have to decide who that person is. The Library Commission recommends that it's the county judge. So what we have here today is the policy model from the Texas State Libraries Archive Commission, and there are 2 pages that Judge Lee would need to sign if you decide to name him. One of those is, one is the designation of the local government records management officer, where it says that Judge Lee is what I wrote in here, but that's at your discretion, that he would be the person to sign the forms and to send those in. Of course, I'll do that once you sign those, Judge. And the second one is declaration of compliance that says that we will comply with the required schedules. And the list that's on here includes the county clerk, the district clerk, the elections, public health, justice and municipal courts, public safety agencies, public works, and records of property taxation. The other thing that I have here, I'm not required to bring this to you, but I wanted to bring it to you just in the matter of transparency, is the plans for the auditor's office. Most things in the auditor's office we can destroy within 3 to 4 years. I prefer to keep those 7 years because I think 3 years is really not long enough. So I've listed the things that we have here and our plan to keep those for 7 years.
I found that interesting that they would say 3 to 4 years. Even I think
I think that's not long enough.
way short.
Now, bond things, we have to keep until they're paid for, and 3 to 4 years after, again, I'm gonna keep those for 7 years. But we have things in our office that are back from 87, 89. There were lots of things from prior commissioners, just old, really just mail that they had not opened. Well, let me back up. They looked at it, but they didn't take it with them. Not that they hadn't opened it, I'm sorry. They did open it. But I'm just trying to clean out things in the auditor's office before I can proceed and have those older items destroyed. The court needs to take some action to designate an official records management officer.
And if the court said 7 years, you're comfortable with that?
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, so your particular policy would designate, your suggestion is the county judge, could be anybody else?
It can be any elected official can take on that responsibility. And then when we have things shredded, that person would sign off that we were following the requirements.
Okay. Jill?
I currently am have signed compliance for the GR, which includes Commissioner's Court, because I have the minutes, keep all the agendas and that sort of thing. Part 2 of the GR are finances, in which some of what you're talking about, the bonds, you have to keep those 3 to 4 years after the bond has been satisfied, as well as you have to, on working papers, things that are yet to be resolved, you have to keep those indefinitely until those things are resolved. I guess I'm thinking that's probably things that were in question in an audit, for instance, and those. Currently, I am an officer. Now, I'll be happy to let anyone else. And I'm also the...
And tell me, I'm not...
CC, which is the county clerk, my office.
Okay. And how do you know that did we make a decision on that you have seen? Because I'm happy to leave that in place, but I'd like to know how you know that.
I called, after I took office, I called the Texas State Library, Joshua Clark. And previously, it was, of course, Sherry Mars. I found old papers from Teresa Price and old papers from Diane Norris. So I called him. He said those were the ones that you know they were and you know had to sign the compliance agreement for. So they recommended that I do that.
Okay, but what is the scope of your authority there? I mean, do you make decisions on how long the auditor keeps paperwork?
I just keep the retention schedule if they have questions.
Okay.
And then they would have to, you know, be one who said, these need to go because we resolved this and show we win and that sort of thing. I also approved Commissioner's Court. I have some questions of the county attorney as far as misdemeanor records and how long the detention is on those. That's just what the state library explained my role was in that.
In this particular policy today, is this, you're asking us to do this for your office in particular?
Well, when I called the Texas State Library, the person that I spoke to, a young lady named Erica, I don't have her last name right here in front of me, was not able to find any information for Titus County. So she had me basically start over and take their small county policy and put that together.
Well, I have it in my office, and I have the Texas State Library has signed off after I submitted the.
Well, I guess I'm trying to figure out,
So maybe we don't need a new one.
well, that's why I'm trying to understand, if this is going to encompass more than just your office's documents, I mean, I can certainly see why her records management policy on the type of thing that she deals with could very well be different of what you would deal with. So I don't want to usurp that responsibility that she has by any action that we would take today.
My understanding is that you have to have an elected official must be responsible, and any elected official is already responsible for their own department. And it sounds like you already have set up to do other departments as well.
Only the GR, which includes the Commissioner's Court.
What does GR stand for? Government records. Okay.
Yes.
It says records common to all governments is what it says.
Yes. And the Commissioner's Court records is the first part of that plan. The second part of the plan is finances.
Okay.
And I'm also the county clerk.
Why don't we utilize that document, but change it from the county judge to the county clerk?
Okay. Is that acceptable to you, Joe?
Yeah, that's fine.
Sounds like you're already doing the bulk of it.
I didn't know we were doing that, honestly, so, but that'd be fine. I'll just have to talk to them about, do I need to renew the compliance that I signed? And or maybe amend it or something. But I'll find,
Okay.
I certainly find out.
Well, do you want to table that then until you have a chance? Or is it going to hurt anything to designate the clerk?
Whatever y'all want to do, I'll be happy to.
It's fine with me to wait and give you time. And we have a big box of things, but it can sit right there for 2 more weeks, and then we can hopefully make a decision at that time.
Okay, so approve a records management policy and designate the retention officers. Do you feel more comfortable with us waiting then, Joan? Do you feel more comfortable with us waiting before we designate that?
Yes, I really do. I mean, if you want to go ahead and do it, I'll try to figure out.
No, we'll wait.
What's required.
I'll put this on the next.
That's going to work into what I already have agreed to.
Okay, I'll put this on the next agenda. I think some of our department officials and elected officials would just like to have some guidance. How long do I need to keep this stuff? And I think I know we've got stuff that's 20 and 30 years old over there across the street that we need to
Is there a schedule on that? I know when I was out at the school as maintenance director, we had all that stuff out there, and we had a list or a schedule that we went by of, some could be in 3 years, some could be in 5, some 7, some lifetime, and stuff like that. Is there anything like that with the?
In the GR, it does designate.
Okay.
I was mainly concerned with the minutes
Mm-hmm.
and agendas and that sort of thing, because that's what I keep. Now, I'm sure that we can find it, because the GR is supposed to accomplish your jobs, commissioner's jobs. But I'll be happy to look that up.
All right, we're going to table this with a proper motion.
I'll make that motion.
Motion is made to table by Commissioner Applewhite.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Parker. Okay, James, if you'll put that back on for us, 1st of December. All right, item number 10 and number 11 kind of go together. Right now, let me tell you about item number 11, just as a little bit of background.
Brian, we didn't vote on that.
We didn't vote. Okay, let's vote to table. Sorry about that. All in favor of tabling that regarding records management, say aye.
Aye.
We've got the Juvenile Probation Office owns a well-used Ford Expedition, and they replaced it, probably 4 months ago with a new vehicle that was a Traverse, Chevy Traverse, I believe. And so we've got two vehicles that sit on the parking lot that are owned by Juvenile Probation. And I had asked, what were we going to do with that vehicle? Paul Lindsay mentions to me that he really needed to replace his Crown Victoria. It was becoming prone to some problems, and he felt like it was time for something else and to be looking for another alternative. So I talked to both Paul and to Brian with Juvenile Probation and suggested that maybe that could be the next vehicle for Paul Lindsay, to buy that used Ford Expedition so that we didn't continue to have 3 cars on the parking lot instead of 2. So Paul has got a used Crown Victoria, and Constable Barrett's got a well-used Crown Victoria, and both of these could be sold. Paul is in the process of getting a couple of relatively minor problems with his Crown Victoria fixed by Jeff, and I've spoken with Constable Barrett, who was wanting to donate his to the college, I guess to their automotive department, and I said, well, how about we use that instead and try to get it sold, and we can use that money to give to the Juvenile Probation Office. And I don't know that Juvenile Probation has formally approved the $2,500, but I think that that's probably in the ballpark. But either way, we've got a couple of vehicles to be sold, and one that can potentially be bought. If we don't buy it, then the Juvenile Probation needs to sell that Crown Victoria to somebody else. At least that's going to be my suggestion as a member of the Juvenile Board. So I'm telling you all this here rather than putting it all into one agenda item. I did want to separate it out, that this is what my suggested objective would be, is to get rid of these Crown Victorias that have been, we've gotten all the life out of those that we can. This Ford Expedition is really quite a decent vehicle. I've ridden in it several times, and I think it would be fine for the local use that Investigator Lindsay puts on that. So we would need to, before we can consummate this deal, even if you did approve it today, we do need to get a final approval by Juvenile Probation at that dollar figure, but I think that that can be done. So, any questions before we, I don't want to have these 2 vehicles sold, sell Paul's vehicle out from under him if you're not in favor of buying the Crown Victoria, because I don't have a suggestion on a replacement vehicle. So they kind of go together, and if you do one without the other, you might be in a bind. If we don't sell these 2 vehicles, we don't necessarily have budgeted funds for that $2,500 purchase of the Ford Expedition. Any questions about any of this? I think it makes sense. 2 vehicles that aren't, one vehicle that Constable Barrett's got that needs to go, and then an upgrade for Paul. And I think we can do it very efficiently and get a nice vehicle purchased for a fair, good price. So unless you have questions, I'm going to ask first that you consider allowing us to sell these 2 Crown Victorias, one of which Constable Barrett controls and the other in the county attorney's office that Paul drives.
Make a motion to sell them.
I'm anticipating we get $1,000 to $1,500, maybe $2,000 for these vehicles for each vehicle, somewhere in there. I'm hoping to generate enough to cover that $2,500 price. So I've got a motion from Commissioner Fitch to approve the sale of the Crown Victorias.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Parker. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Then, again, this is pending final approval by juvenile probation. If I can't get this $2,500 price worked out, I'll bring it back to you, but if you're in favor of buying that, it's a gold-colored vehicle that sits here on the courthouse square, Ford Expedition. Approving that purchase from juvenile probation for $2,500 would be what I would ask you to consider. But if I can't get that price done or anything, any other reason comes up, I'll come back to you.
Make a motion, we can try to buy
Motion's
it.
made to approve the purchase of the Ford Expedition from juvenile probation for $2,500. That motion's made by Commissioner Fitch.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Applewhite. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Item number 12, approve oral and written reports.
This is your statement of cash position. Cheryl and she helped me her case today. She ran for me, and we are certain that the numbers are the same. She didn't do any work this morning that made our numbers be different last week.
Thank you, Cheryl. And again, that was just one of those rare times 2 weeks ago that they didn't match. I'd say 98% of the time they match. And to clarify, the only reason they didn't match is because Cheryl had processed a few bills when that, was it that morning, Cheryl, before we came in to court? The evening before? Okay, and it was nothing more than a timing difference. There were no errors.
Make a motion we approve.
Motion to approve these reports is made by Commissioner Applewhite.
Second.
I think I heard Commissioner Parker there, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Cheryl, your treasurer's report, please.
Thank you, dear. Thank you. Make a motion we approve.
Motion for approval is made by Commissioner Applewhite.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Parker. It beats you again. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 15 is signed pay orders and approved payment of bills. No, I'm sorry,
Budget
14,
amendment.
approved budget amendments.
I have one.
You did have one.
I have one, it's for the refinancing of the bonds. These are preliminary numbers that we have, but I want to go ahead and get this in because we need a budget amendment before we actually take possession of those.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that, would you?
We refunding a portion of the 2012A bonds. They will be listed as the Series 2019. The principal amount of the bonds are $30,610,000. The original issue premium is a little over $3 million, for a total of $33.7 million in sources of funds. The uses of the funds, we're going to purchase T-notes in order to pay those off, $33,257,000 and some change. There's underwriter's discount, cost of issuance, that total $379,000 and some change. Bond issuance premium of $66,000, and then the county will actually get a little money back of about $5,500. So this is the one budget amendment for those numbers.
And these numbers were provided for you by Hilltop?
Yes, sir.
All of this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And this is the final results of the refinance that we just went through. If you all remember with Mr. Martin that was here with his son that day, that we had an opportunity to refinance basically all the bonds that we could, that were able to be called at this time, and get a slightly lower interest rate and save us a good bit of money over the next 16 years.
My understanding is the actual closing will be Wednesday, so these numbers are subject to some minor changes, but it's important that we have a budget amendment in place before that happens, which is why I'm bringing this to the preliminary numbers.
All right. Any questions about this? This is the one and only budget amendment.
For my information, is there, it'll be paid off at the same time, even though it's refinanced?
Yeah, there's no change in the length of time. The extension is not affected. We're just able to get a little bit better rate. Good question.
I'll make a motion.
Motion to approve the one and only budget amendment regarding the refinance of the bonds. Commissioner Applewhite.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Fitch. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Item 15, sign pay orders and approve bill payment.
Make a motion, we pay our bills.
Motion is made by Commissioner Parker.
Second.
All of you I heard at the same time. I'm going to give that one to Commissioner Fitch. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Closing comments. Let me tell you about a conversation that I've had, and I asked Ed Thatcher, the acting city manager, to send me an email here. If you'll recall, back when we were finalizing the budget, we approved the purchase in this budget year of half of one of the engines for the fire department. We're sharing that cost 50-50 with the city. The city is going to finance their portion of about $305,000. I told Mr. Thatcher that we would not participate in that financing, as we had set aside those funds in the budget. So they are going to prepay for this truck up front and get all the discounts that they can possibly get on the truck itself and the equipment. But let me just tell you what Mr. Thatcher's put here in this email. Pursuant to our phone call this morning, I'm sending you an email to summarize our discussion. I updated you on the purchase of the county and the city's joint purchase of the fire truck. The council approved a resolution this past Tuesday authorizing the city staff to proceed to negotiate the terms of a loan for the city's portion of the cost of the fire truck. We are in the process of doing that now. We have also signed a purchase order for the price of the truck, so we can get it ordered and under construction, as it takes approximately 9 months from the time we order it till it's delivered. We're also in the process of ordering all of the equipment that will be placed on the truck. We are spending the entire $610,000 up front, so we'll get the discount on the truck that's available to us if we pay for it up front. We are ready to receive the county's payment of $305,000 at your convenience. thank you for making this project so easy to do. So I just wanted you to know where we were on the timing. Make sure that you're okay with just writing them a check as opposed to participating in financing. I have no idea what kind of rate they're going to get on that, but that was the best situation for them. And to let you know about how long it's going to take, about 9 months, and that they are prepaying it up front rather than incrementally or waiting until the end. Let's see, what else did I have? Oh, the Amy Hinton, the acting, I'm not acting, that may be her official title. I think she's in charge of the city's events coordinator. They'll be having the activities on the square again this year, I guess in a couple of weeks. And I'm not sure exactly. She's meeting with me today to tell me about what activities will be taking place down here. I don't know if they're going to have the ice rink, but they will have she promises this to be the best Christmas celebration that they have had. One thing I did want you to know about, they are going to be selling alcohol in a designated area on the square this year. It has been permitted, and people can still be on the square with alcohol, but they are going to be selling it through one of the local vendors, and I don't know who that is, somebody who's approved with a liquor license. So that is a change. It will not be on the square of the courthouse, is my understanding. Not that I told her she couldn't do it. I just said I just want to know all these facts so that I can tell the commissioners. I'll get more details after I meet with her today, but I did want you to be aware of that little bit of change in their procedures. And that's all I have. Commissioner Riddle?
Nothing.
Commissioner Fitch?
No.
Commissioner Applewhite?
Just want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, and just be careful and enjoy your families.
Thank you, Commissioner Parker. All right. Thank you very much for your attendance today, and with a adjournment motion, we will do so.
Make that motion.
Motion's made by Commissioner Applewhite.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Parker. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you very much.